any ground. I went 1-4, and I stayed right where I was.
I know. We're recording now. I think the top people in the contest went 1-10. And they're
Yeah.
It was a disaster for the NFL in the big Westgate contest this past weekend. Hey, Hank, this is Jim Feist and Hank Goldberg. We're on Wednesday. We're doing a podcast. We're going to go over some baseball, and we're start looking. I don't know if we'll talk about the NBA at all, but that's possible. But we're going to talk about some pro football as well. Hank, how are you doing today?
I'm okay. That was quite a pitching performance last night, and Kershaw finally got himself a World Series win, which will complete his legacy. He's quite a pitcher.
He is one of the best and has been for a long time. He hasn't topped it off with postseason play, but this year he's doing a whole lot better. And this is a big game tonight. Verlander, who's been the best pitcher in baseball the last couple of months, I mean, he's 9-0 with Houston since they picked him up in a trade with Detroit. And he's going against Hill tonight. This is a huge game for Houston. If they can't win this game, they're gonna have a tough time coming back against this Dodger team, who has incredible pitching and incredible bullpen. And then, of course,
their bullpen's really tough.
Very tough.
If they get into their bullpen, it's and I'll tell you something. The Houston has got some key players who are not hitting right now. Their center fielder struck out 4 times last night, and that's not a good thing for them. So they've got to start hitting.
Well, they've done okay at home. They just have not been hitting at all. I mean, in Yankee Stadium, they did very little, but they came home and did very well. So they've had a real bad slump on the road. This is going to be.
There's one thing I don't like about Houston, and that is that they're playing in extreme heat in Los Angeles. It's going to be 97 degrees again tonight. I know they say it cools off a little bit, but the game starts at 5 o'clock, and it's going to be very hot. And I don't know that Houston plays that well in those conditions.
Well, the heat factor in LA is very high, but the humidity factor is low. And if you've ever been to Houston, and I know we have, it's one of the most tree, and it's very uncomfortable. So, I mean, I think they can overcome that. The question is, can they overcome Hill, who's pitching very well, and this Dodger lineup, which is very potent. And the Dodgers have been the best team in baseball all year long, but we had a couple teams like Cleveland and Houston that popped up and played very well. And then, of course, like teams like the Yankees that did very well at the very end. Baseball is very interesting. It's exciting. But we got some NFL stuff to talk about. And last week was a complete disaster for offensive performance in the NFL. There were like 7 teams. 3 teams got shut out, and 7 teams barely scored. Some of them scored at the last play of the game. The NFL is in a slump right now with the performance of their quarterbacks and their offensive lines, and that's things that need to be corrected. But it's going to take time to do that. You're going to have
our friend Art Manteris has to be pretty happy because the books out there got to be cleaning up.
They didn't. It was kind of a funny situation. They didn't get hurt last week. They got hurt the previous week, but they didn't get hurt last week. But they didn't make a fortune either. It was a very strange week with the balance. There was a lot of balance in the betting on those games this past weekend. They did very well in the Atlanta-New England game because there was so much Atlanta money and Atlanta money line money, and of course a lot of over money is in that game as well. So they did very well in that game. But we have a game tomorrow where Miami goes to Baltimore. No more Jay Cutler. He's got some cracked ribs. And maybe they're playing the quarterback they should have played all year long in Matt Moore.
The coach won't agree with that. As soon as Cutler heals, he's going to be the quarterback again. I will tell you something about Moore. There are guys who are cut out to be placement guys, and there are guys who are starters. And Moore reminds me of Don Strock. Strock was great coming off the bench. As soon as he became a starter, he wasn't that great. So I'm not convinced that Moore is going to be able to put together a back-to-back situation going on the road against what's a pretty decent defense in Baltimore. On the other hand, Baltimore hasn't done anything offensively, but the Dolphins' offensive line right now is in terrible shape. Tunsil, the left tackle, may or may not be able to go. He's a little bit better than they thought he was. They feared he had a more serious injury. But remember, they're coming off a short week, and he has to get ready quickly. And Pouncey got hurt again, and he may or may not be able to go. So they're going to have to juggle. They may have to be juggling some offensive line assignments in that game tomorrow night because, it's a short week. They got a lot of guys hurt in that game against the Jets, and I think that they may be a little shorthanded in several areas, including on defense. So the Dolphins, we'll see. I'm not sold on it. I don't like the game very much. I know Flacco has been terrible, but they've added a couple of guys to help Flacco out, a couple of guys in the receiving area who they're a little bit high on. And, Baltimore's been bad on special teams. They've got some, I think, coaching issues right now. But, this is their season's on the line right now. They still have a shot to do something. There are three teams that I'm looking at this weekend where their season's on the line. The other two teams are in the South. If I'm leaning towards Baltimore, you're correct. I think the Dolphins are a very overrated team. They gave up 3 touchdowns on defense against the Jets, who have a lousy quarterback, and they also, the fourth touchdown they gave up was on an interception that Cutler threw. But getting back to the other two teams are in the NFC South. You wonder if you've got Carolina going into Tampa. You've got 2 quarterbacks who have been struggling in that game. Somebody's going to wake up. Is this the week that Carolina wakes up? This is a huge game for them. If they have Kuechly, I think, and I'm going to wait and see what his status is, then I think that Carolina has a chance to win that game. Now, the other game where I think you got tremendous value is Atlanta. If I told you before the season started that Atlanta was going to be a 4-point favorite over the Jets, you'd say, where do I sign up? The Jets are not a good football team, and Atlanta has been struggling. But this is it for Atlanta. If they don't win this game, their season's done. So they've got a lot of pressure on them. Now, I know Sarkisian is an issue, and they're not communicating well offensively, and they've been coaching out of desperation, making some strange moves. But if this offense can't get it done against this Jets defense, then that entire Atlanta coaching staff ought to be left wherever they're playing the game. And and the game is being played in the Meadowlands. I just don't think that I just think that there's such a differential in talent between those two teams that I think you're getting value laying 4 points in that game.
There's no question about that. When you look at the talent, that Atlanta has as much talent on offense as anybody in the league. They just haven't been performing. I mean, they haven't scored 20 points in 3 games. And
right, but they're playing against the Jets. The Jets gave up, whatever you want to say, the Jets in the second half against the Dolphins, their defense collapsed. And they couldn't stop a backup quarterback. He is a backup quarterback. Whatever you want to say about him, he's decent. He's a serviceable guy. But a good defense is going to stop him. You saw that in the playoffs. The Jets are not a good defense. They're not a good football team.
No, they're not. Atlanta has managed to lose to Buffalo at home, Miami at home, and barely scored any points against New England, who has the worst defense in football going into that game.
The Jets have no pass rush whatsoever. They can't get to the quarterback. Their outside rush hasn't had a sack in weeks. And so, this is one area where a stationary quarterback has an edge. So they should, and they should be able to get their key guys involved. And this is the 1 week where if they can't get it done against this team, they might as well go home for the season.
No question. There's quite a few teams like that this week, and you mentioned a couple of them. Definitely Atlanta is the value side here. No question. The question is, are they going to show up?
And I'll tell you something. Tampa Bay has been a miserable investment at home. There's something like 1-9 against the number of their last 10 home games. They never cover. They can't score in the red zone. I know that they got their middle linebacker back last week, but didn't seem to help very much. Buffalo, Buffalo came through against them. So, Tampa Bay at home is a bad investment. But you just wonder what's up with Cam, because he's been awful the last 2 weeks. And, he had been playing so well for a couple of weeks, and all of a sudden, he's just going into a funk. Something's wrong with that guy's head right now. And you don't know if he's going to snap out of it against this team or not. But you know something? Winston hasn't been playing very well either.
No,
last week he had a decent game against Buffalo, but their defense couldn't hold up against Buffalo's offense in the end.
Talking about somebody that actually did play well last week, the Philadelphia Eagles and Carson Wentz, they are playing very well. They have the best record in football. They have a lot of momentum. Wentz looks like the steal of the year, and they're playing a San Francisco team that got shellacked last week, and this is a West Coast to East Coast trip for them. And as a matter of fact, I think this is their fourth road game in 5 weeks for San Francisco. Terrible scheduling thing. 13-point favorite for Philadelphia, coming off a Washington game, which is a big division situation, and San Francisco has a young quarterback that didn't appear to be ready for prime time last week. So you really have, there's a lot of this type of matchup stuff going on in the NFL. When you take a look at Indianapolis with their issues, and it's
I think this might be the last game for that coach. I don't think that they're going to go on as miserable as their defense has played. They look like they've lost interest, and they just can't stop anybody right now. Indianapolis might be one of the 3 or 4 worst teams in the league, and that coach was on thin ice anyway. As far as Philadelphia is concerned, I'm a little worried about them right now, because as well as they've been playing, they lost 2 key players last night for the season. Their best offensive lineman is gone. They lost Peters. That's a huge loss for them. And they lost one of their top defenders too. So that was a very physical game that they came out of, and those injuries are going to hurt them. I don't know if it'll hurt them a lot this week, because I think San Francisco's found their level. But they tried. So we'll see what happens. And it's a short week for Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Another team that I like is Dallas over Washington, because Washington had a lot of injuries in that game. They seem to lose one player after another. They've got some real serious problems right now. And Dallas looks like they're peaking all of a sudden. And their running back was at his best game last week, and he's there's no question that he was going to play this week. So they've got a week of practice without worrying about what his status is going to be. And I think they're going to crush. I just see them crushing Washington.
You know, the Washington injuries, 3 offensive linemen got hurt in that game, and that is a major blow, especially against a team that can rush the passer. And Dallas did look better last week. I mean, however, they were playing San Francisco with a, inexperienced quarterback, but be that as it may, Washington with those offensive linemen hurt, that is going to be a very tough game for them to stand up. But it is a division game, so some questionable stuff does happen in games like that.
Well, you know something? Everybody's talking about how great the Philadelphia quarterback is in his second year. What about the Dallas quarterback in his second year? He's been playing very well, and and now they're getting people healthy too on defense, and so Dallas is may go into the second half of the season as a tough team to beat.
Oh yeah, that NFC East division is really tough. I mean, they got a couple of good quarterbacks there. Some of the best quarterbacks in the league right now are playing in that division. It is definitely. You talk about a quarterback. We have Mitch Trubisky last week threw 7 passes. They had 5 first downs, and they won the game.
Yeah. Well, they won the game because they got 3 turnovers. They had no offense. Well, they got a decent running game, but what happened was that they generated all their offense by their defense.
Yeah, they did,
and special teams.
That's right. And now they go to New Orleans, who is actually playing pretty good football at the moment, and you have a big mismatch at quarterback with Breeze against Trubisky. As far as experience is concerned. And I'm wondering if that playing good defense and running the ball can work for Chicago in a foreign environment. The line on this game is 9 or 10. New Orleans is favored.
Well, I don't like Chicago as an outdoor team going into the Dome. And New Orleans right now, their defense is playing extremely well. And remember, New Orleans went into Green Bay last week, and that was a real wise guy game, and yet New Orleans prevailed. And they've got the 2 good running backs, and Breeze is playing very well. They've had they've been playing much better than people thought they would, but apparently they've drafted well and they've done a good job personnel-wise, and their defense has really improved over last year. That's been the biggest improvement on that team, and that's where Chicago's going to be up against it.
Yeah, Chicago's not going to win very many games by throwing the ball 7 times and having 5 first downs. They're going to have to perform a little bit differently going forward. It's talking about a team that's having a lot of trouble, and we're not going to give away any picks here, but the Denver Broncos, what are they going to do at quarterback?
They don't have, I don't know what they're going to do. I mean, are they going to stay with Simeon? He's been horrible the last couple of games, and he hasn't helped his team at all. And they have supposedly a decent running game, but I mean, they've scored 1 touchdown in the last 2 weeks. That's not what was expected of them. They were supposed to compete in that division. Their defense, is still strong, but I think Denver's in big trouble. And you would have thought that Elway would have known better, but I think they're stuck with this guy because the guy they drafted, I don't think is physically ready to play yet.
Yeah, well, they did bring back their old school quarterback as well. And I mean, they could go in that direction. This is a big division game for them against Kansas City, but Kansas City's coming off a couple losses in a row too, where they lost to Philadelphia.
Yeah, well, they had the game stolen from them last week. And I think Kansas City will bounce back strong this week. That game is at home. The Chiefs are good. I think, the two games that they lost, their first loss, they had been playing at such a high level that they were just, Smith finally threw in a game that was not up to the standards he had set in the previous few weeks. But they played good enough to win, and it took, how many replays on the last play of the game for them to get beat last week? That game was a joke.
And I think it was four penalties in the end zone at the end of the game. They
got to get Barry back, though, on defense. They really miss him.
Yeah, this is gonna be a war. That's a monster game for the AFC Western Division. That's gonna be a real war. Well, Hank, anything else you want to cover before we sign off? I know your horses have been good, your sports have been good, and you're still really in contention in the Westgate. And anything else you'd like to talk about before we sign off for the day?
Well, I think we should talk about the Steelers a little bit. They seem to have come to life, and they've got an interesting game this week at Detroit. I don't know what the status is of, which I'm going to find out before the weekend, of all those injuries that Detroit had. But here's another team with a winning record going up against Detroit. And yes, but the Steelers defense is playing pretty well right now. And Fat Face has calmed down a little bit, and he's not turning the ball over, but he's relying on his running game. And I know one of the receivers got hurt last week, but he's been a little more careful with the ball, and he's relying on his running game a lot more. And I think that's the formula that they need: defense and the running game that's going to carry them. And they've got a lot of talent on that team. And this is an interesting test for them going against Detroit on the road, because the last game they played was against Cincinnati, and a team that they've always had good success against at home, particularly.
Yeah,
so that's an interesting game.
This is a big Sunday night game, and Detroit is a rested team. They've had a little time to heal up. It's a big game for them as well, because Green Bay going down with Aaron Rodgers, that division there is probably going to come down to Detroit or Minnesota, and so this is going to be a big, highly motivated game by both sides. Nobody's going to come into this game flat, that's for sure. They're going to come to play. So that's yep. Let me just say, everybody out there, go to jim102517. Hank's plays in horses and sports are there each and every day. Just go to jim102517, look for Hank Goldberg, and check out what he has to offer. And my plays are there as well. We're covering the NBA, we're covering baseball, we're covering football, and college basketball is right around the corner. So if you like to play, if you like to play and you like to win, go to the website and check it out.
I can tell you this. Jim Larinaga finally spoke up, the coach at the University of Miami. If that guy is guilty of anything, I'll go serve the time for him. He is as honest as the day is long. I would vouch for him. There's no way at the age 68, with the reputation that he has, that he has done anything illegal. He knows the rules, and I'd be shocked if he's guilty of anything. And one other thing, a week from Friday and Saturday is a national holiday, so I won't be working on Friday with you because it's Breeders' Cup Day.
Okay, well, we'll pass the podcast on Friday then. Okay, everybody, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you soon.